Hey guys, it's Marc Silber. If you don't know me, I'm an author, educator, and photographer here in Carmel, California. And I want to talk to you about something really important, and that is how to be happy with photography. Now, there's two ways you can read that. One is you can be happier with your own photography, and you can also achieve happiness through your photography. Which way is correct? Yes, they're both correct. So let's talk about a little roadmap of how you can actually improve your photography and thus achieve greater happiness with it. And I want to give you some tools. And if you're familiar with my work, my book, Advancing Your Photography, you'll recognize that there are 5 stages of photography in this book. And I'm just going to break it out and I'm going to give you a way to gauge your own level, your own skill level, which also corresponds with your happiness level. So let's take a look at this. So the first stage we call visualization, and that means getting in your mind what you intend to photograph before you press the shutter. Now that can be on a really big level, like I want to go out and photograph by the ocean today. Maybe that's as far as you get, which is okay. You may even get it even more narrow, like I intend to press the shutter just as this surfer is going off the top of the wave. That's what I'm looking for. Now, I may have to do it 100 times until I get it exactly right, but that's what I visualize in my mind. Now, let's look at your skill level here. So we're going to start at the bottom and go up rather than the top and go down. So you'll notice there's a line over here, which is your happiness level. And at the top, we have your skill level. Happiness and skill go together. So the bottom, not the very bottom, we have this person who's struggling. And they say they have a lot of difficulty with this tool. They're not quite sure how to visualize or whatever tool we're using. And they're just struggling with it. Now, below that, there's this person who's kind of in this zombie land. They may even think they're really good at it, but they don't even try. So they're kind of almost off the chart here. Now, moving up from struggling would be what we call a beginner. They're beginning to use the tool, but they're not very certain of it. Awesome. You're using it. That's how you're going to become certain of it. You know, there's just this thing where you just got to get out there and use these tools and try and fail and try and fail. There really is no such thing as failure because you're always learning something. You're always advancing. Above that is the enthusiast. I got it, man. Now, I'm not going to negate that that's a cool attitude, but there's a missing component that people can get stuck in, which is, I really got it. I don't really need to learn anymore. I'm just going to go out and do that. Okay. I'm not going to criticize that because you are in action and you're doing it. But there's another component that you see in these other levels that become really apparent, which is the advanced photographer says, you know, I can use this tool, but I'm always learning to use it better. Very important that that component is in there. I'm always learning to use it better. And then we get to the professional. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the person is earning their living as a photographer. They may just be a very enthusiastic photographer, but they're operating and they're producing at a professional level, which is really what I want you to aim for. Not necessarily because you want to go out and earn your living. That's great and you should, but you want to operate at this level, which is I am totally confident in applying this tool and it shows. They're not just blowing air out of their mouth, but they're actually showing that their work is at that level and they're continually learning. That's a very important component in every one of these levels. So again, you can judge your happiness level by where are you? And you should do this honestly, guys. You know, I can't judge for you, nor can anybody else. You really should judge for yourself. But don't overly criticize yourself. Don't yank yourself down this scale, but don't inflate it either. Let's get an honest assessment, okay, on each level of photography. So if we go to the next level, what we're looking at is equipment. Like, how confident and skillful are you at using your equipment? Do you struggle with it? If you do, get in there and learn about it. Are you a beginner? You're getting the hang of it, but you haven't quite got it yet. You're an enthusiast, which means, hey, I can use my camera. Maybe I'm not the best in the world, but I'm really getting good at it. It's the advanced photographer says, I can use this tool, but I'm always looking for more information and ways to use it better. And the pro says, look, I'm totally confident in applying my equipment, but I'm continually learning. That's the attitude of a pro. All the pros I know operate at that level. After you learn your equipment and you got it down, you don't have to do these like to the point where you only are learning equipment. This is a cycle, so you keep going through it, right? But once you get to a point where you know what you're doing with your camera, now you can go out and capture, which really blends visualization and your use of the equipment. And it means you're capturing, you're using light, you're using composition tools. Now, I really love to talk about composition because I find it's an interesting subject for most photographers. I'm very interested in it. It goes back to the basics of painting and drawing, which go back the millennia, okay? Back to the beginning of time when man was in beginning of man's time, when we were in caves and we were drawing on the walls. That's where composition came in, because we were telling a story. And don't forget, that's the key thing with your camera, is you're using it as a visual storytelling vehicle. That's really what it's all about. Now, do you struggle? Are you beginner? Are you enthusiast? Are you advanced or professional in terms of capturing, in terms of composition and your use of lighting? Evaluate those things, because that's going to give you, again, your roadmap. And then you have almost the final stage, which is editing or processing. And that's where you do need to tweak your images. In the darkroom days, we had to process our images. We had to process our negatives and print them. And in the digital age, you need to do that too. And there's a lot of skill that goes into processing. What level are you in this? So we're all kind of being hit with new stuff, new tools, with artificial intelligence being entered into the picture more and more. And my philosophy about this is, if these tools can help me tell a story and be a better artist, I'm going to use them. Am I going to use them to manipulate my images in such a way that it's artificial? Like, I take a photograph of clouds and then I merge that with another photograph that has no clouds in it. I might, if I feel that's going to help tell the story, but there will be a line that I'm going to draw myself, and everybody needs to draw that line for themselves and decide, okay, if I'm just doing computer stuff, that's fine, but that's computer art, which could be classified differently than photography. That's all I'm going to say about it right now, because that merits a whole discussion. But again, knowing your tools of processing and editing is super important. Then we arrive at the final stage, which is what I really want to talk about today, which is really achieving happiness requires getting your work out with the world. I really believe that. I don't actually think that any artist of any kind is ever going to feel happy about their work if they're not sharing it with others, they're not showing it to others, they're not getting it out to the world. And there's a lot more to this. I could make a whole different scale here, which corresponds with this, which is using the tools of sharing, which means not just putting it out on social media, because people are scrolling by at record paces and you're competing literally with trillions of other photographs. That's not the best way to share. And I want to make sure that you're open to different possibilities of sharing. My earliest days as a photographer, this will really date me when you see the cover here and look at the date. This is the yearbook of the year I graduated from grade school. Boy, that makes me pretty old. But I had the cover. And this was on a litho press, offset press that we actually printed ourselves. And this is pretty cool. You know, there's poetry from the students and ink carvings. There's various different design elements in here, and another photograph of mine, litho. It's really pretty amazing. This is the first place that my work was ever published. Here's a photograph of one of my classmates in a water fight. I actually really like, I don't know if you can see this there. This is a pretty cool photograph. I took it with a long exposure so you can really see that water flowing. And this is where it all began, folks. I'm not going to go through all my bundles of different printed stuff and whatnot, but this is another stage. A few years later, I was going to the San Francisco Art Institute and made this book. This was never published. Nobody's ever, sold it or seen it other than myself and a few friends. But all I did was I printed on photographic paper, and then I also made prints of my writing, my text, as photographic prints, and I glued them together. So these are the prints, and there's the text. So, it's really a prototype. In today's world, we would do this with things like blurb, right? Which makes it so much easier. There's that photograph again. And, I basically just paired my photographs. In this case, this wasn't my own writing. This was an author named Paul Reps, who I was very interested in at the time. And I just quoted him here. So this is, again, you're looking at early stages of sharing. But you do this today with your blurb book or going to Bay Photo Lab and creating a book there. I really, really want to encourage you to make books because I find that to be incredibly satisfying. You know what's nice about it is it completes that project. Otherwise, you've got, let's say you took 3,000 photographs on a trip to Utah and they're all just kind of sitting there on your hard drive, but they've never really been whittled down to maybe your top 15 and maybe some writing notes of what you were doing there in Utah and what happened and your own epiphanies. And that can be done. I mean, this book is about, 8 or 10 pages, but it is a book. And you can do that with a blurb book. You just put it all together and that's your story about going to Utah. Share it with your friends. Sell it. Put it out there. That's really what it means to me to be sharing your work and to having completed this cycle of photography and to feel that fulfillment that goes along with it. Does that make sense to you guys? I know it does because I've talked to so many of you. And my role in life is to help you achieve that. I want to help you achieve that kind of happiness. And I want you to feel that satisfaction. And one of the key ways of doing that, one of the most important elements to improve in this cycle is composition. And composition means how you use the frame of your camera to tell a story. There's all these different ways of doing it. I wrote a book on composition and I found 83 different compositional tools. And I've fairly recently put together a book called The Composition Field Guide, which is not all 83. It's about 15 tools, but you can put it on your phone and look at it and get ideas when you're out in the field, because we all need those ideas. Remember, the professional says, I'm totally confident in applying this tool and it shows, and I'm continually learning. That can include the moment when you're out photographing. You're learning, you're going, That's what Mark was talking about, diagonal lines. Or that's another type of framing. I get it now. Because sometimes these things don't click until you use them. But you can get the compositional field guide. You're going to find it right down in the description. Get it and use it. That's my gift to you. Okay? I hope this helped. I do want to remind you to subscribe and enable the bell. We've got some really cool videos coming up, you guys. I'm going to do more of these, which is taking apart certain subjects and just bringing them to you. And I'd love to hear what you want me to do, what you're interested in. It's all about you. Remember, it's you. It's advancing your photography. Your photography. Right there, the word your. It's not mine. It's not anybody else's. And it's advancing. Advancing is a continuous process. We're always trying to advance. We're never at a level where we've got it all. Okay? So help me help you. Leave your comments. I want to read them. Your questions. Please share this video if you know somebody who needs to watch it. Leave your likes. And as always, remember to get out and capture your own images of life. Take care, you guys. Stay creative, and I'll see you really soon.